Okay, hi, I'm live. This is funny. Anyway, welcome. This is this is funny doing this because well, for a lot of reasons, really. Uh, but any case, I think I feel. Oh, there we go. Okay, I was gonna say last time I could sort of had a better. Um, uh, in any case, welcome. I think I just posted something. Um, if you're watching this in the group and you can see my posts, I just posted a little snapshot of my lunch today. Um, I've been making these smoothies with my lunch that well, maybe I'll just mention a little bit about that. They have collagen and other coconut oil and hemp seeds and blueberries and stuff in them. And in any case, I made that during lunch, and it just I poured it into the glass, and it was just everywhere. And I just stood there and went, okay, I'm really glad this isn't a daily experience. But I'm actually feeling that way today. I was feeling that way yesterday. Lots of explanations for that going on in the stars and other reasons. But we'll just leave it at that. So I hope you're having a better day than me. And or it's going okay, but days are lots can happen in a day, can't it? All right, so let's get to the topic today. Just kind of having a weird moment. So I did take some notes and I did prepare because I want to cut back on the extraneousness, but of course, doing lives if you haven't done them before, it's a different experience. Um, all right, so today I wanted to follow up on the koshas. I don't not sure if anybody had a chance to watch. This is again, yogic philosophy. You would learn this in, say, a yoga teacher training, or a more in-depth study of yoga. You would learn about the koshas, which is what I taught about last week, and it's super relevant and very cool to understand these things. It's a reason why people go beyond the asana practice and they want to learn more about the yogic philosophy because again, it just explains so much about our reality and our mind specifically. And they're basically the same thing, isn't it? Depending on, oh man, um, different schools of thought, basically our reality equals our mind. Like it's the same thing. So let's talk about that. So yeah, maybe I'll try for about a half an hour again. That's plenty usually. Um, so the koshas. So I just wanted to have a little teeny review there. I did watch back what I had posted, and I realized that I made a, as far as I'm concerned, like a big boo boo. And just in saying that when you do asana, which is the physical yoga, that you're only affecting the physical body, and that's not really what I meant. So let me clarify. So, in the uh, again, in the interest of the deeper work, yes, you may find that you practice yoga for many years and you're still dealing with the same issues in your life. So yes, there are deeper ways to, yogic practice and study is like, I mean, people who actually took this on in their lives, it was like a full-time job. They were called ascetics, which means they gave up everything to, their livelihood to study these teachings and do these practices and, for the attainment of enlightenment. I have a lot of opinions about that and how the lineage of yogis is actually a lineage of, sometimes I think it's misunderstood in the West, that a yogi was like this holier than thou kind of exalted being who was like pure and all this good stuff. But often, sometimes the opposite was true, was that there were, um, just specifically in some of the yogic lineages, they were very, um, you know, elitist, right? So the yogis were practicing things that they only they didn't want to share their knowledge with other people because they wanted to advance and get better and better and better and be better and be the best. And um, anyway, that's just one perspective, and that's just one portion of, say, um, a history of a yogi. But this is not my my idea. I went to a museum at one point, and it was in San Francisco. They had a big yogic um, um, uh, exhibit. Sorry, my words are not coming easily. And it really it kind of it's very eye opening to see how some of these ancient yogis lived and how extreme they were, and how really difficult their minds were. So yeah, that's kind of a lineage thing about yoga. And yeah, again, there's more I could say about that, but I'm not gonna go there at the moment. So so the idea is that I was trying to kind of stay focused. So the idea, again, I just wanted to kind of cover up that boo-boo that I made in the last talk about saying that, asana is not going to affect you beyond the physical sheath. So the reason that's not true, and if you have a yoga practice, you know that that's true, and you've come to yoga and you've had the experience of it affecting more than just your physical body, right? So it doing the practices, doing the breathing work, doing the asana too, went beyond the physical layer and into your second kosha, which is your pranic layer, right? It affects your mood, it affects your energy. So clearly, we're moving beyond physical into energetic and emotional. And then when we move into breath work, we can even affect our mind. The deeper koshas, right? The lower mind and the higher mind. So, and that is the point, is doing these practices, becoming the witness and the observer of our body when we do breath work or when we do the asana. What we're doing is we're actually separating our consciousness from our body. So say our body is sitting there on the mat. Here's our little body, right? There's our feet and there's our head, and we're in Dandasana, if you know that pose. But we're over here. Instead of being like super absorbed in this experience of sitting on the floor, I know this is a terrible example. Just imagine these are your legs, this is your butt, and this is your head, okay? Dandasana. Maybe this makes sense, maybe it doesn't. But in yoga, what we do is we pull our awareness back and we watch ourselves sitting on the floor. We watch how we sit. We watch how we move. We watch how fast we move. We watch how quickly we react. We watch how we react to the teacher and the other people in the room. Or if we're alone, we become a witness. Okay, that's the asana part. And then if you're doing breath work, it gets even more focused and specific, where you have a set of instructions in your breathwork practice. Okay, inhale for, let's say, inhale for five counts. You can do it with me now. Let's try it. Inhale for 5 counts. Hold for 5 counts. Exhale for 5 counts. Hold for 5 counts. Okay, so if you could not separate yourself, the one teaching you to do this breath practice and the one doing the breath practice, does that make sense? Right? You have someone who's going, okay, Julie, you're going to sit down, you're going to hold for 5 counts, blah, blah, blah. But then what can happen with a beginner student or with someone who is not, has more, again, more going on in their mind, more kind of, maybe even a teenager, someone who's not super self-aware. I've seen this in class too with younger students. It was very interesting, in fact, to witness a younger, like a teenager do yoga, because they really aren't aware of their body very much. So, you know, we have different levels of awareness, but it also has to do with our just our ability to be conscious and present, right? Which comes with age, sometimes, usually, hopefully, depending on your life, because things can happen too that prevent that or whatever. In any case, so you are separating yourself from the one who is dictating the practice, giving the practice, and the one who is doing the practice. And that is separating, that is creating an awareness of your own mind, which is, the deeper, there's the preliminary awareness, which is just the, wow, I can't get my mind to focus. I can't get my mind to do what I tell it to do. Like I tell myself to hold it for 5 breaths, but I don't want to, and I'm pissed off, and I'm defiant, and I don't do it. Or I don't know. Think of another example. So there is the ability there in the pranayama practices too, to penetrate even deeper into that wisdom mind, and then have this experience of being totally merged with the practice, where you're no longer having to count, and you're not separated from the teacher and the student, you being the teacher and you being the student, where your mind opens up and you start receiving like higher guidance and information, like you're just a channel for, again, your higher self, so that quickly, and I think this would deserve like a whole podcast, but or podcast, Facebook Live or whatever, talk. So, okay. So that was like 15 minutes of just going there. All right, so let's go into what I originally planned for, which is the kleshas. All right, because we were talking about avidya. And again, this is not going to make a lot of sense if you don't watch the koshas, or if you don't know much about it, and if you didn't watch that, if you don't already know this terminology. So so it's good to, start from the beginning if you can. So, all right. I wanted to say a little word on translation. All right. So again, I mentioned this last time that if you Google something, obviously you're going to have different spellings, you're going to have different sources, you're going to have different information. And sometimes people, it's good to just go, wow, there's all these different funnels. This information is going from like way, way, way back, right? And it's not always going to match up. So I just want to be really clear about that, so we don't go, oh, I heard this was that, and that's not what she said. Because it's like, there's a lot of different probabilities for the actual information, and it's varied. So that'll make sense as I go into this. All right, so a little review on avidya. Okay, so we talked about how avidya, which translates as I mentioned, the word avidya translates as ignorance. Another way to put this, and this is a great translation is incorrect comprehension. Okay, so ignorance can get a bad rap, that word. That's why, language is so important, because we could say, oh, ignorance, and we could say that with judgment, or we could say that with negativity. But what it actually is incorrect comprehension. So that's quite innocent, isn't it? And ignorance isn't always ignorance. I mean, innocent, as we know. So that's kind of where the derogatoriness got attached to the word ignorance. Because sometimes there is negativity attached to it. But sometimes it's innocent, right? You're just ignorant. You don't know. How could you know? You just don't know. And so if you want to look at it through the term incorrect comprehension, that's less judgmental. And I always like to remove judgment off things, because we can't learn when we're judging something. We just can't, right? We have to have a neutral mind, and I'm going to talk about that more as we go into this, okay? And again, just a little teaching on neutral mind is in the yogic teachings, we can have a positive, a negative, or a neutral mind. So that's nice to know about yourself, if you are naturally positive-minded, neutral-minded, or negative-minded. And just so we know, if we're neutral, there's just less margin for error. Okay, so we endeavor to have a neutral mind in the yogic tradition, if that's something you're interested in, because then you can observe without attachment or aversion. And we're going to talk about that, because those are two of the kleshas we're going to talk about today. What a great segue, Julia. All right. So a little review on avidya. Avidya is ignorance. It is lodged in the chitta, which is a part of the mind known as the subconscious mind, which is in the lower mind. And it's our ignorance. It's our dark side of the moon. It's what we just don't know that we don't know. We don't know it's even back there. And so it's in our subconscious, it's in our ignorance, it's in our shadow, right? I did a shadow work course earlier this year. And again, we can access what's in that shadow, but it takes some work, because we don't even know what we don't know, right? So it's sort of like, holding up a mirror to yourself, and you go, oh, with this mirror, I can see the back of if you have a mirror behind you and a mirror in front of you, you go, oh, looking into this mirror in front of me with a mirror behind me, I can see the back of my head. Oh my God, I had no idea I had a colic right here, or whatever. Or I didn't know what the back of my head looked like. Well, you have to, in life, find a way to hold up a mirror in front of yourself to see what's back there in your subconscious. And again, that takes effort. Sometimes. I mean, life is very mysterious, isn't it? But yes, we'll do the effort approach, because that's all we have control over, is where we effort. All right. So that was my review on avidya. I hope we remember what that means. Now, a couple things about the kleshas. The kleshas are in the yogic sutras. They are there, and there's lots of lists in Buddhism, in yoga. So there's the 5 koshas, there's the 5 kleshas, there's the 4 noble truths, and the 8-limb path, and I mean, again, these are all approximations. It's like distilling things down to these numbers, and we can always add more. Sometimes we can, but sometimes they're pretty inclusive. So we have the 5 kleshas, and so Buddhism has kleshas too. So I just want to make a distinction here, okay? When we use terminology, once again. So in the yogic kleshas, okay, a klesha, one translation is it's an obstacle. An obstacle is a neutral term, right? It's just an obstacle. I mean, in contrast to, in Buddhism, the way that they define klesha is affliction, poison, defilement, what's misery. Okay, so clearly these are not neutral terms, right? To be afflicted, to be defiled. So if you have one of these kleshas, we have to be very clear we have to be critical when we think about these things, because you know, especially when we're working with tools that are helping us towards working with our own consciousness. Because when you're working with a system that is already pathologizing you and saying, oh, you have afflictions, you have these 5, and I'm going to name them for us. Okay, it's in the group, but they are Esmitta. These are the Sanskrit terms. Esmitta, which is selfishness, also ego, also pride. There's only... Okay, I want to backtrack just a second to say what I was going to say earlier was, again, the Buddhist kleshas and the yogic kleshas are a little bit different. And in yoga, actually the way it's put, in one source anyway, I haven't read all the scriptures, spoiler alert, is that avidya is the main one, right? Avidya. Just ignorance. Just, not knowing something exists. That's like, it's kind of all tucked into there. But then again, in the yogic scriptures, there are 4 branches of avidya. So avidya is like the roots of a tree, and the branches, these 4 branches of different types of ignorance. And that's what these are. Esmitta, which is ego, also known as pride, also known as selfishness. That's the first one. Raga, which is attachment, also known as desire. Okay. Devesa, which is aversion, to keep something away, to avoid, to aversion, or also translated as hatred. And that's really an interesting translation. When you think of something you have aversion to, you actually can turn into a hatred of that thing. And we see that, with all the isms, right? An aversion to something becomes a hatred. And that's, again, these are also flavors or levels and layers of these kind of the depth of going from neutral to negative, right? So aversion could be neutral, hatred is negative. And then the last one is abhinivesa, which is fear. Okay, so we've got ego, selfishness, pride, 1. Attachment and desire is 2. Aversion and hatred is 3. And fear is 4. The 4 branches of avidya, which is ignorance. So those are the kleshas. And the way I listed it, it was avidya was just 1 of 5. And you'll see that some places, and you'll see the other thing other places. But, if you've seen this talk, then you can break it down into the nuance and not just the, drive-by understanding. All right. So the idea is that so what these kleshas do, okay, is they cloud our perception. So incorrect perception. And I want to put this into 2 categories, which if you study some of these sciences of energy, or again the mind, or some of these more wisdom sciences, there's these 2 categories that can happen, okay? And they're called deficiency, deficient, and excess. Okay, deficient is like too little, excess is too much. Okay, and we fall on, say we're in the middle is neutral, But when we go out of balance, we either go into deficiency or to excess. And what happened today when I poured my smoothie? Excess. Too many thoughts, too much going on, right? Excess. Too much water all over the counter. And if it was deficient, I would have poured just maybe not enough to even have a nice sip. Maybe I'll have a sip right now. Excuse me. Okay. All right. So these are really, really important concepts to understand when we're dealing with chakras, when we're dealing with energy. We have deficiency or excess. So on the deficiency side of a misperception, and I've been talking a long time already, so oh my gosh. On the deficiency side of a misperception, of an ignorant approach, of a incorrect comprehension, the deficient side is to say have information, but to doubt oneself, right? So we don't take action because we're coming from deficiency. Like, oh, I don't know enough. I shouldn't. I'm going to hold back. I don't know. So think of it like this. If you have a story, you have your story. And that's like saying you don't believe in your own story enough to tell it. Okay? So the perception is that you are holding back on a story that is true, and you can't even share it. On the excess side, we have self-deception. Okay? So we have ourselves, instead of, we have a story, instead of, a story that is true and real that we can't share, we actually make up stories that aren't true. And we create misperceptions. So that's called self-deception, or telling yourself stories. So I'm trying to think of a good example here. I mean, what comes to mind, I don't know if you watched the debates last night, but okay, I don't want to get totally political here. But that's a good example of watching people with perception, working with perception and stories, and making up stories or holding back information that we actually need to round out our perception, right? I hope that makes sense. So yeah, the idea is that we have these 5 kleshas, and there's a lot to say about this, but they are the root of all of our suffering. And I could go into each of them more in depth here, but I'm also noticing the time, and yeah, this is kind of a I'm not sure if any of this made any sense today, but I'm hoping it does. I mean, again, I'm trying to wrap my head around sharing this information as well. But so let me just finish this with saying that I'm podcasting right now about my 21 Hidden Root Causes of Disease project, which, again, were all findings within the subconscious realm. So hidden, subconscious, darkness, ignorance. What most people are, ignorant of is what's causing their suffering. And so I guess part of what I'm doing here is trying to expose these hidden things, bring them to light, bring them to consciousness, by doing my shadow work course and by doing this project, 21 Hidden Causes of Disease, to help create awareness. And so, kind of wrestling ourselves out of that darkness into the light of knowledge and being, so that we can heal and we can have agency over our health. And this week, I podcasted about toxins and the idea that toxins and toxic thoughts are actually come from the same source. So toxins in our environment, and how when we do not honor that we have toxins in our environment and how they could possibly affect us, it's a toxic relationship with negativity when we allow it in. We allow it to poison us, right? And so I thought that was an interesting correlation because I didn't set out to make that correlation. But, moving forward, I think I will continue to do these lives. And I'm actually going to be talking about in the lives what I've been podcasting about. So they'll be the same topic. So next week I'm going to talk about diet. And that's what I'll be talking about in the live. And so I hope that was entertaining at the least. And if you have any anything to say, hopefully it's constructive. We'll put it that way. Please leave a comment, and I truly hope that you're having a nice day and everything's going good. And it's an interesting time, right? That we're in. So just hang in there. Take care. Please know I'm a resource. Reach out to me if you want to do any work together about clearing some of these misperceptions, or working with your health. There's a lot of things that I work with. Again, I'm trying to penetrate all the koshas, working from the physical to the etheric levels within the realm of yoga, and all the studies that I have done and do to bring awareness to these things, and to help people who are interested in doing a little bit deeper examination about what's happening in their lives. So I'll continue to try to articulate more clearly and better for you all. And in the meantime, you know where to find me. And I hope all is well. So take care. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. And talk to you soon. Peace. Bye.